And we were very much in the mindset that we have to make this niche work. If we pivot, we're failures. And we just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And it wasn't until the start of this year, 2025, that we actually took a step back and said, well, maybe we're not failures if we pivot to a different niche, but maybe we're just not pigeonholing ourselves into something.
Well, a lot of people that are watching probably think that they need to like have their niches set up perfectly ahead of time. They think that they have to have like all their marketing, GTM strategy set up ahead of time. I get all these people every day being like, well, Nick, how do I do it? I don't know my ideal customer persona. What about my mission and my values? And I'm like, my dude, we're making 10 grand a month. We don't need missions or values. Like, you need to get out there and start talking to people. And it sounds like you guys embody that.
I think it's just funny because we never really thought about Upwork apps as one of the avenues to do. And then that was, the fastest wins for us.
Just having like a tiny bit of technical skills makes you mega dangerous. What is one piece of advice that you two would give to somebody who's on the fence about starting their journey, whether or not it's automation related, just business in general?
I think a big one that I come back to even for myself is...
All right, gentlemen. So how much did you make last month with your automation business?
Last month, we hit 25K, which was pretty insane for us initially, given that historically we've never been anywhere close to that. And since joining Maker School, we've sort of been doubling our revenue month on month. Initially, I think it was about 10, and then now about 25K. And then prior to Maker School, we had a couple of rough months. I think our lowest was about 2 or 3K. So have seen some exponential growth since jumping in, which has been awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. That's really cool, man. I remember when you joined, which I believe was early April or late March. Then like exactly 1 month later, you had a win that was like $7,500 in our first month in Maker School. It just blew my mind. And it was extraordinarily interesting to a lot of the people that was in the group.
Yeah, and at the time it was awesome to land, and now it's awesome to be ahead of that in at 25K. But I was talking with Kade earlier, and for us, we've always had in our head, I think 20K, 25K has been a number that we've always wanted to hit. And we've always thought that once we hit that, we will feel successful, we've made it, we'll be on top. But it very much feels the same to us, where you wake up, you do some Upwork apps, you optimize your cold email campaign, and you work. And I think it's going to always feel like that, regardless of the number coming through. I'm not sure, Nick, if you have a similar experience in that regard.
Yeah, definitely. It's only very recently that it's actually struck me the degree of impact that I've had with the channel, but then even before that with the automation agency, and then before that with the content agency. I think part of it is just because of like most of the work that we do is digital. And so we're usually just like staring into a screen in some way, shape, or form. And just like the human brain has not evolved to deal with that. I feel like it's different if you're in an in-person business where you really see the scale of your operations. I work from home, so I don't have an office or anything, but I was chatting with a friend of mine that does have an office. And I was like, so how big's your office? And he's like, oh, it's like 2 floors of that skyscraper over there. And I was like, that's impact, right? Like that's pretty chunky. And I'm thinking about like my own money, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could probably get like 5 floors of a skyscraper or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. But I think you did touch on a really important point, which is that like the flashy business is very different from like the effective business. And it sounds like you guys are doing effective business. Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's sort of, we made this mind up that we would have a certain image around the business when we get to certain revenue goals. And like Jake said, it just doesn't feel like you're at that point because you're not, driving, like I'm still driving the same car. I don't have a plan to buy a different car, but the day to day, very similar to when we started. It's just, you see the actual, remuneration side of it a little bit differently now.
Yeah, definitely. Y'all are out in Australia, right?
Yep.
Yes, we are. It is freezing here.
Freezing? Really?
I think it's actually colder than Canada, like substantially.
I don't buy that. Not for a second, dude. Bro, it was like -40 last winter, man. If you stayed outside for more than like 30 seconds, you would legitimately get frostbite all over your body.
That's bad.
What were you guys doing before you started this? I mean, how long ago did you start as well?
Yeah, so obviously you mentioned when we started Maker School, I think approaching month 5 now in Maker School. Had some experience before that, more so with sort of social media marketing, very much that like a whole wheelhouse for about 2 or 3 years. I've had some experience, I'd say, on sales calls and communicating with clients, but like Jake said, the revenue was very much on the lower end. And then joining Maker School a few months ago, sort of a bit slow to start, but then that first month when we hit that 7.5K win, we were like, okay, I think there's a lot of merit here to really ramp things up.
What were you guys doing before you joined Maker School? Let's just say on like the outreach side of things. Those first couple of months where you're catching your bearings.
Yeah, main acquisition channel was cold email and paid ads. And I think it's just funny because we never really thought about Upwork apps as one of the avenues to do. And then that was, the fastest wins for us, especially in that first month while we obviously scaled up cold email. But yeah, mainly just cold email and advertising. And then obviously from a cost perspective, the cost per lead with ads and customer acquisition cost was much higher than with Upwork.
Yeah, definitely. I find that if you just make every platform like agnostic and then just go based off of whatever the lowest cost per acquisition and highest lifetime value is, you get away from all like the BS, right? Like, every platform and every way of generating leads tends to have connotations. Upwork's main connotation obviously being that clients there are all penny pinchers, and they're nickel and diming you. And while that's true, like that's also true in cold email, and there's also a lot of people that nickel and dime you in ads and so on and so forth. So I find just like being super agnostic and taking the approach that you guys did, where you guys are just like, hey, what is the lowest cost per acquisition? What makes us the most money? What's the most consistent, the most scalable? And let's just like quadruple down on that. I find that to be the best. So kudos there.
Yeah, definitely.
When you guys just started, what would you say was like the goal here? Did you guys want to hit $100,000 a month right off the bat? Like where did you guys see this agency going?
Yeah, I think for us, the 100,000 it sounds sexy and it would be awesome to hit. For Kade and I, we have for the last couple of years also been working retail jobs, and I've been working in the family business as well. And our main goal has always been to go full time on the business and be able to support ourselves with that. And if we're being brutally honest, we probably could have done that at a lower revenue goal and then sacrificed our personal lives. Maybe we cancel the gym membership and work out at the park and we eat ramen. But I don't want to do that. So we're sort of balancing the two jobs, and now we're both full time, which has been awesome. And it feels a lot more real on the day to day in terms of, okay, this is what I do, as opposed to, yeah, I work here and then on the side, I've got my own thing going on type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So you guys are fully into the business now, fully out of those retail jobs, huh?
Yep.
How was that transition? And when did you guys do that? That must have been fun.
For me, I'm still in the transition because the way it's set up, without putting you to sleep, it's very hard for Dad to find someone else. So I'm sort of transitioning that at the moment. Kade, I think it was about 2 months or a month ago.
Yeah, so I was very much have more flexibility. It's not being a family business. They can replace me pretty quickly. It's on them. But my manager was super understanding. I said, we're very busy. Can I have some time off almost? She was like, yeah, obviously this isn't what you want to do full time. It sounds like what you're doing on the side is what you want to do full time. So made that transition. I remember I recorded a little selfie video in my car on my last shift, like after I'd clocked out, just as like a way to document it. Such a surreal feeling. I think I was talking to Jake and some friends about it, where, I wake up and I'm in complete control of my day. There's no one I have to report to. And it's sort of like an extra level of, I guess, maturity that you have to get the work done. There's no one you have to answer to a degree. Kind of have to answer to Jake. He yells at me sometimes, but
yells at me too. What's going on with that guy? Yeah, it makes sense. I find that really interesting because on the flip side, you don't have to answer to anybody, but you also don't have to answer to anybody. And so it's, as you mentioned, a positive and it's a negative. And if you're the sort of person that I suppose can't build your own schedule, I can't follow some sort of structure that you put out yourself. I see a lot of people take those first few steps in entrepreneurship and then just say, I'm going to quit my job. And then they quit their job and then they just have zero constraints and they just go off the deep end. So I think you guys got good heads on your shoulders. I like what you did. You transitioned organically. Like when I was going into entrepreneurship, I did the quit my job thing. And let me tell you, it was like a rough couple of years initially. Had no runway, had no ability to like make longer term financial decisions that actually made sense. Everything was just like, how do I make $20 now so I could, as you mentioned, buy the ramen packet, right? So I consider you guys to basically be like the stereotypical great path forward and like I guess the route that I would recommend that most people do that are looking to juggle full-time jobs and then some sort of side hustle, that like slow, gradual, but incremental and consistent shift in time allocation. It's a killer work, guys.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so let me run you guys through a couple of questions then, because I know the audience is definitely wanting to know. Let's break down the actual strategy that you guys followed. So what did you guys choose niche-wise? Why did you pick the niche? what was like your first client like when you guys ended up getting the first client? And you can do the first client pre-maker school if you guys had one, and then the first client post-maker school. Just run me through kind of everything for those first few weeks, which ultimately ended up resulting in that 7.5K.
Okay, I might start, then I'll handball off to you. With the niche-wise, for us, pre-maker school, it was very much gym focused for about 2 or 3 years. And we were very much in the mindset that we have to make this niche work. If we pivot, we're failures. And we just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And it wasn't until the start of this year, 2025, that we actually took a step back and said, well, maybe we're not failures if we pivot to a different niche, but maybe we're just not pigeonholing ourselves into something. And there's no medal for making one path work because it's harder compared to something else. So with that, it was very much a lead gen focused pre-maker school. We ended up pivoting to more so focus on tradies within Australia. So things like plumbers, electricians, painters. So then when joining Maker School, we sort of had that mindset going into it. So in terms of a niche, it wasn't so much picking law firms or consultants, but I think it was more so just anyone who could benefit from cold email was our initial thinking. Within that, we ended up picking 2 or 3. I think agencies stood out to us because we had been in the space for the last couple of years as well. So when writing the cold email copy and just being on sales calls with people, we sort of had that rapport and understanding of what they're going through. So I think that helped us from a niche perspective. But in terms of picking something, I think our frame was not wanting to pigeonhole ourselves in.
Yeah, I think that was the thing. We didn't want to niche too much on sort of a group of people off the bat because we weren't sure how we could help them. So we very much said, okay, we've got a cold email system. We've got a lot of experience with cold email. Let's niche around the product. And then that obviously led us to, talking to a lot of agencies through that. And then I think just by default, like Jake said, we sort of fell into that as more of a holistic niche just because of the experience we have in the space. But I think the first client we closed on Upwork from Maker School was just like a random $200, like, yo, could you fix this make automation thing for me? We were super excited. We spent ages planning it out, how are we gonna do the onboarding, and we jumped on the call with him and made sure it all worked. And then we're like, yeah, we can do it for less. We can do it for less, just to make sure we got that first job. He's like, no, you guys seem pretty cool. I'll do it. I'll pay 200 or whatever it was. And we were like, oh yeah, sweet. And then I remember we were so excited over it just because it was a new avenue completely. We've never gotten a client through Upwork, and then it's oh, okay, this actually works. Let's just, if we got one after doing however many apps, let's just 10x that. We'll get 10 clients. So it was a pretty interesting start.
Pretty straightforward when you think of it that way, huh? Well, it took us X to get Y, so why don't we just do 10X and then we'll get 10Y? Yeah, I think about that a lot. I think there's so much magic, and everybody has their own opinion on the various ways that you could do lead gen and how you should structure a business. But honestly, man, you just dial back all the complexity. It's kind of like a caveman problem. Just hit the thing over and over and over and over again. If you do it well enough and often enough, you will find the result. I like, too, that you guys took this approach where you didn't want to make any, I guess, presuppositions about what the best niche was. And you guys were, I think, self-aware insofar that you were like, well, to be honest, we don't really know. So why don't we just try a bunch of stuff? Then we'll see how the client engagements go. We'll see how easy it is for us to deal with. We'll see. We'll just try it. And then we'll let the market tell us what to do next. I think a lot of people that are watching probably think that they need to have their niches set up perfectly ahead of time. They think that they have to have all their marketing, GTM strategy set up ahead of time. I get all these people every day being like, well, Nick, how do I do it? I don't know my ideal customer persona. What about my mission and my values? And I'm like, my dude, we're making 10 grand a month. We don't need missions or values. You need to get out there and start talking to people. And it sounds like you guys embody that. I'm just curious, do you guys ever run into issues on that front where you get I don't know, you guys ever find yourself overthinking it? Did, Jake pull Kade out of an overthinking loop, or did the opposite happen? Or
I think that's one of the advantages of having two of us is we can bounce ideas off. And if I'm having a day where I'm this is not going to work, we're never going to make any money, Jake's let's calm down. I think we're doing okay. But very much we initially didn't change our website from agency, social media marketing agency focus. So we were sending cold emails and people would search the domain and they'd be like, do you guys do advertising or do you do automations? And it's just because we were okay, let's just focus on cold outbound first. and then go from there. But in terms of overthinking, I think initially we were sort of the opposite. We're like, now let's just hit the outbound reps. And then sometimes we're like, okay, is this niche super scalable? Like with the cold email offer, for example, could we expand it? And I think that's just, like Jake said earlier, we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves into, okay, we're a cold email agency now, but it's just sort of one avenue of a few products.
Yeah, I think for us, it's very much, we've learned over time to just throw stuff at the wall, and whatever shows some form of promise, okay, let's 10x that, and can we leverage that and scale that, opposed to pre-planning, what do we think is going to work out? I think this, and let's build our whole business around that. And you spend 2 months doing that before you've actually reached out to anyone. And then there might not even be a market for that. So more so letting the market tell you what they're wanting and then scaling that.
Agree entirely. Yeah. Just one of those fundamental, I guess, disconnects between the way that, an MBA would teach business and then the way that like the real business environment would teach business. Like you learn so much more through organic, get out there, throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. When people ask me what the wider strategy is behind my automation agency, it was literally like the same thing that I talk about in Maker School all day at like 100x the volume. When it was like, hey Nick, how did your make money with Maker School scale to this big thing? And I'm like, I just made a lot of YouTube videos and I linked it in the bio. Like, doesn't have to be super complicated. The super crazy high-level strategy funnels and stuff like that, they just tend to be mostly fluff in my experience. So glad that you guys are doing what works. Did you guys did you guys change anything as you scaled? Or was it just still the same approach, same sorts of products? I mean, now that you guys are at $25,000 in a month, is there like a different distribution of what you're selling than there was when you hit $5,000 in a month?
Yeah, I think for us, we're more so wanting to streamline the delivery side of things. Initially, it was a lot of custom work, and now we've sort of built up a bank of templates that we can deploy for clients. So it's more so scaling cold email volume, for example, and then leveraging blueprints in something like make.com to then deploy for them as delivery, opposed to building out something custom that tends to be a lot more time consuming.
You guys have the draw to go to N8N or... You mentioned make.com a couple times. How's fighting that constantly every 5 seconds?
I think it's, I remember one of your videos you spoke about, like if you try to get too in the weeds with every single tool, like you just don't spend time on what you need to be spending time on. I remember one client, it wasn't even a client, I think it was just an Upwork job that I wanted to apply to. And it said something about N8N. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I can make it in Make, but I'll just join the N8N free trial just to see. And then I joined it and I was like, what am I doing? Like I could have applied to 5 other jobs in the time I've spent, signing up and trying to figure out where everything is. Like it's just not super optimal. So I think at the moment we're sort of happy with Make. Obviously there's benefits from N8N as there is with Zapier. There's some clients which already have it and they're like, oh, can you just plug it in? So I think it's more something we want to cross when we get there. But I mean, if that's maybe going to be the secret sauce to get us to that next level, then I'm going to join N8N after this call.
I can confidently say that you could sell ice to Eskimos. You could sell anything to anybody. You could deliver anything using whatever platform you want. Like at the end of the day, it's not really about the implementation so much as it is about like the consistency and then the value that you guys are capable of driving. So whether you're driving that value using a make.com automation or an N8N automation or one of the other many tools that are out there, because there's like 10 being released every day. That's really all the clients tend to care about. Obviously, on platforms and stuff like that, you have keywords associated with searches and there's some minor tactical things that you can do to improve your probability of landing them, but you guys got good heads on your shoulders, let me tell you. Because shiny object syndrome is like probably one of the biggest killers here. So many people start off with grand aspirations. They want to do this, they want to do that, and they'll do lead gen for 3 or 4 days. Then they'll be like, oh, but this new AI model came out that can, I don't know, clone a chimpanzee and give me Bigfoot Veo 3 ads or something. You know what I mean? Like there are all these little like funnels that you fall into and then you just get trapped because it takes like a month to figure it out. I'm glad that you guys haven't.
Yeah, appreciate it. I think for us, it's almost to the opposite degree where we'll refuse to pivot because I think, as I said earlier, it just feels like if we pivot, we've just been like from countless YouTube videos, people have always said, if you pivot, you're probably giving up too early. It's like, okay, no, we need to do this for 100 years. And then if it doesn't work, we can pivot. It's like, whoa, let's take a step back. Maybe there is opportunity and benefits to looking at other newer tools as well, but maybe we wait before jumping on them straight away.
Yeah, very well said, man. Very well said. Okay, what's the distribution of responsibilities in the business? You guys both doing the same thing? Does Jake specialize in one thing, Kade specializes in another?
I think Kade does everything and I just take all the money.
Pretty much. It's very 50-50, and even Jake saying that, like, we are very big on tracking our time as well, so we know where time is being allocated, because if we sign a client, say, for $3,000 and we end up spending 400 hours on their build, it probably wasn't a good client, even though it's all a shiny Stripe notification for $3,000. So very much we both do the sales calls, we both do cold outbound, we both look at cold emails. I feel like just out of, I guess, convenience, we've sort of fall into one of us specializes in one thing. Jake's very much setting up the cold email stuff. Secretly, I just don't want to set up a bunch of cold email accounts. It seems pretty boring. So I've told Jake he's very good at it. And then with other stuff, I'll...
That's the secret. Dude, you're incredible at this. Oh my God, that's awesome. You should do the bookkeeping too.
Yeah, that's what Jake said to me. And now I'm stuck in zero every Monday. He's like, I just don't understand numbers. I'm pretty sure I sat next to him in maths and would copy off his homework. And he's like, nah, you're way better. So,
hey, actually, that's a good point to touch on. Y'all are childhood friends, yeah? You guys went to school together and stuff?
yeah.
That's really cool, man. That's so cool. One of my first business partners, one of the most charming, suave men I've ever met in my life. I met him randomly at the mall. I was with a friend of mine, and I was just chatting with him, and like I think he was getting out of a relationship or something. I was like, "You got to go, man. You got to approach that girl. You got to talk to that chick. You got to like put yourself out there." And he's like, "You think so?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And that some girl walked by or something, and he was like, "Oh my God, she's so pretty. Should I do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, man." So I went and I shoot him off, and then he went and he did it. And while he was doing it, some dude came up and approached me. And he's like, "Hey, I like the way you look." And I was like, "Oh shit, here we go." Anyway, that was what ended up being my business partner. We ended up being best friends for a better part of a couple of years. Started our door-to-door marketing agency or whatever. And I'm not going to lie, I'm doing this big journal entry thing right now to try and figure out like what my priorities are in life, where I want to take the business and stuff like that. And part of it is you assessing when you were the happiest you have ever been. And the happiest I've ever been was when I was working on that business from the ground floor with my partner at the time. We were going door to door. People were telling us to screw off, getting chased out of plazas by security and shit like that. Dude, nothing like being on the ground floor of a business with your best mate. So that's cool as hell, guys.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits of having the partnership is if I'm having a rough day, Kade's there to support me. And likewise, if he's having a rough day, I'm there for him. And it's sort of just keeping each other accountable as well and saying, hey, it's not that bad. Look at what we've achieved so far. And it really does help on those days where you're like, I've got to do all this work. Is it even worth it? It's you have that person to lean on and support you there too. And make memories with.
Yeah.
We have jokes all the time, which lightens the mood and it just makes it a lot more enjoyable to be in the business.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, just like zooming out a little bit, right? Like you get so into what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, you don't even realize how impressive it is, or it would have been to former you, right? Like you guys looking at some business a year ago being like, they make $25,000 a month. It's like, holy crap, that's incredible. Like we want to be like them. Now that you're on the other side, a lot of the time we take these things for granted just due to the minutiae of day-to-day work. So I think that's a positive thing to have in partnerships for sure.
So I remember being on a sales call, like when we were doing the agency space, and I got off the sales call and I said to Jake, they're definitely going to close. They're doing 20 grand a month. Like they got so much extra money. And this was like a brick and mortar business, which would have rent, they got staff, they got all these other things. And I was like, they're doing 20 grand a month. They could buy us like 4 times over. And they didn't close, but it's funny now the shoes on the other foot.
They're literally like 25 cents and a used toothpick in their bank account. It's like, you think they're going to close? It's like 4% margins.
Yeah.
They can be brutal, man. That's why I stay away from those local businesses, to be honest. I mean, just like having to deal with rent. Think about it. Like having to deal with a line item that's just an additional 5 to 10% off your margin off the top. Like that just sucks. I don't want to do that. I get the benefits to offices, but then you have to deal with like inventory and logistics and shipping. I don't know. Depends on the business model, but for me, definitely wasn't worth it. Can I ask what services or offers ended up being the most profitable ones for you guys? Like, so what's the bulk of what you're selling right now?
I think cold email has been probably the most profitable, but just because we've pushed it the most with our own outreach. And then initially when applying for Upwork jobs, we were favoring the cold email jobs and hammering those ones out. But I think we've also done quite well with integrating some form of chatbot, whether it's for an agency or a business who has too many leads coming through and maybe they're leaving money on the table and not getting as much juice out of the pipeline. I think those have been the most profitable for us.
That's pretty cool. So like inbound and outbound, eh? Tell me more about these chatbots. So what exactly are you guys building?
Yeah, so it's really just an open AI module prompted and trained based off of the business. And then it's essentially just there 24/7 to reply to leads. So they might have go high level, for example, but they're not actually responding to inbound leads. And they say, oh, my leads are garbage. No one wants to come in. It's, well, are you communicating with them? No. Well, maybe that's the bottleneck. And then just helping them do that.
Gotcha. So it's like some GHL reply receipt, webhook over to make, and then you're doing AI responding to them directly in GHL. That seems like a pretty interesting offer. I know that GHL has their own like built-in as well. I won't say it's like the best. I find the second that you know like a sprinkle of automation, you could take all these out-of-the-box solutions and just like absolutely rinse them. Sounds like that's what you guys are doing here.
Yeah, definitely. That's sort of one of the things we say. I feel like another sort of offer that we, I guess, fell into because of experience was automations involving Go High Level, because with the agency, we were using that for 3 years or so. And then the chatbot being based on that, we just sort of said, this Go High Level, job is asking if they can integrate with a Google Sheet, and people have no idea how to do it. But then, like you said, a tiny bit of automation knowledge, we can just send a webhook and then catch the webhook and do whatever we want with that as well. So
makes it super dangerous, man. Yeah, I firmly believe that, like, as much as I rag on technical skills, now they're not very important moving into, this like AI age that we're going into. Just having like a tiny bit of technical skills makes you mega dangerous. Do you guys have any like super difficult client stories? I mean, just given the fact that you guys have been doing this now for 5 months, what's like the worst client that y'all ever had?
I think in the advertising space, we had some really bad ones. Like they paid us like $300 and they want us to fix their entire business. I do think that like with the automation space, it would be different connotations around what we do. People very much more see you as the expert, whereas with advertising, they were like, oh, there's just some guys that can help me run a Facebook ad. I can run a Facebook ad, but what do they know? Where it's like, you ask them, oh, do you guys have API access? And they have no idea what you're talking about. So like, oh, these guys know their stuff. We've had a few which are purely, I think, from our own issues, is we didn't clearly define the scope of work. So it's expected that we do a lot more. And I think that's probably been the biggest issue we've had with clients, with, the first 2 or 3 bigger ticket ones. But I think that's purely just something we've learned from. And now we very clearly say, look, we can do that, but it's out of scope. So we have to reprice it up.
Yeah, well said. I like that you guys are putting blame for that squarely on your own shoulders. One of the cool things about, as we were talking about earlier, being fully in a business and not at all having, your money coming in from some sort of employment is like when things F up, at some level it is your fault, like at some level. You might have picked the wrong client, for Christ's sake. That was where you went wrong, right? Still your fault, even though they're total asshats. So I know scoping for me was a really big one. And it's something that I'm still grappling with, to be honest, especially in like larger, higher ticket deals. Because, if you have something that's even like remotely custom, then expectations tend to balloon and so on and so forth. And to be honest, I think that's probably like the biggest elephant in the room that most people that start automation service businesses don't fully realize. They don't realize just like to what degree they need to wrangle that scope down. After you've figured out your initial lead generation stuff, like you young guys have here, the big thing is just like, how do we make sure that these projects don't go out of control? How do we ensure, that we're selling things that are tightly scoped, packaged, and then do not scale with our involvement, like a lot of custom projects and stuff like that do. So that's pretty cool to see. But it sounds like scoping, another fallen soldier to scope creep and whatnot. It's gotta be one of my favorite things to say in Maker School. Every time somebody's like, help, client wants something that's not in the scope, I'm just like, another man down. Was there ever a moment where you guys wanted to quit? Just say, screw it? You alluded to something like that earlier, but like actually ready to, hand it in and just get the hell out.
I think there's been quite a few where it's, I'm quitting, I'm done, that's it. But deep down, it's like, no, I'm probably not going to quit. And I think, me personally, I think there's been maybe 1 or 2 times where I've been like, what am I doing? Like, I've spent all this time and I've lost money on this. Like, I could have been working a 9 to 5. I'd have this much money. But then I think Hormozi has a great quote from The Matrix where she opens a door and she goes, Neo, you've been down that path. You know where it goes and you know it's not where you want to go. And I just always think about that. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do this. I want to have my own thing. I want to be 80 years old, look back and be glad that I took risk, took a leap of faith, rather than becoming an old man full of regret. I think that's another one from Inception or something.
Movie quotes, man, guide my whole life too. In all honesty, a lot of wisdom buried in there.
Yeah, the amount of times where I've been trying to figure something out on Make and it just keeps erroring for some reason. I'm like, that's it, wrap it up. I'm going back. Start working on my resume. We're done. But yeah, it's very much as cliche as it is. Looking at it when you have a difficult client, or I think for me it most occurs when we get like a big no. Like we had one client where he was like, "Yeah, let's go ahead," and it was like a $10,000 project, by far the biggest project we'd ever had. And this was I think 1 or 2 months ago, so we were still pretty early revenue wise. Like we did $7,000 for the whole month, and we have one client saying, "Yeah, I want to do the $10,000 one." And we're like, "Okay, this is huge." And then, he jumps on board. He says, yeah, I'll do it. I'll give you access to email stuff, sent, some passwords across. And he goes, oh, sorry, guys, can we put this on pause? And he hadn't paid yet. And we hadn't started the work. So we'll wait till he pays. I want to, count our chickens before they hatch. But then, I think that it's just at that moment, it's like, oh, why do I even bother? Like I got so excited for this. And I feel like that's sort of the point where sometimes we're like, is it even worth it? But then, 2 weeks later, we have another client that's pretty happy to do a pretty high ticket deal. So it's all in the larger, I guess, scene of things.
Yeah, it's interesting how that works. It's always like the promise of a client that is pulled away from you that always hits the hardest. I've had a number of very similar situations, and that's always just like the absolute worst for not just my own morale, but also team morale. If you got other people on board with you, get everybody stoked up about a big project. I used to do this. If I had people on my team, I'd be like, guys, we're in talks with this big person. We might close this big deal. Everybody's like, and they're super excited. And then it's like, hey, about last week? This is the worst feeling in the whole wide world. So I've just tried to make it a rule in my own companies that I don't ever count anything as closed until I have money in my hands. Not even if it's a signed agreement. Signed agreements, as we probably know, mean basically freaking nothing these days. But if I don't have actual money in my hands, no real point. Can I ask, and this is just me shilling Maker School a little bit here, but how important would you say the community aspect was to your success? And then if it was important, which I certainly hope so, then what portion of that was important to you?
I think for us, because we'd been in the space just business-wise for a couple of years prior, we had the community aspect in a couple of other groups as well. And I think it's just great to see other people where you scroll through their school posts, for example, and they're like, oh, first month in Maker School. And then a couple months later, they're like, oh, I've hit 10K. And then it's like, I've hit 20K. It's like, wow, these people are actually doing it. It's not just Nick, who is a god and he's a genius and he can make it work, but the common people are doing it as well. So I think that's the inspiring part of it. And then just having somewhere to keep yourself accountable as well, and then ask questions and then bounce ideas off of other people has just been great in helping us move forward with the business. It's sort of like if you were on your own, you have that business partner there, which is the community of people doing the same thing as you. And I think that's always inspiring, especially if you live somewhere where maybe it's not the norm to go out and do your own thing. Maybe people don't even know what an automation is. They don't know what Google is even. It can be great to have that community around you there too.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, man, because I distinctly remember you just making Q&A posts and just asking questions about how to connect various automations together. You replying to people that were winning and, stoking them up and being grateful for their success. It is really cool to me that school as a platform, but also just communities in general, specifically for money making, will show an unbroken path from the person joining to post history where they're asking questions. How do I get started? How do I do this? How do I do that? To conversations hey, I got my first call with a client. How should I do this? Is this good? Is this bad? To literally hey guys, send over a proposal. I'm waiting for it to go. To hey, I'm running a business that's making $50,000 a month now. It is insane to me because there are hundreds, soon to be thousands of user stories in Maker School and other communities as well, showing that. And it's like the clearest and cleanest and most transparent way, I think, that you can break your limiting beliefs, because you see just a bunch of people that started at literally the exact same place as you.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing to track their journey, clicking on their profile, looking at their posts, and it's like, wow, they've done it. Why can't I do it?
All right, one final question here just to wrap this puppy up. What is one piece of advice that you two would give to somebody who's on the fence about starting their journey, whether or not it's automation related, just business in general?
I think a big one that I come back to even for myself is I would rather try and fail than have the regret of not trying. I've got a couple of things in life that I didn't do and I can't go back and change them, and they sort of sit with me. I don't want to have any more moving forward. So it's just what's going to be worse. The worst case scenario, if you do it and you fail, you're not going to die. You're not going to be homeless. But the regret of not doing it will probably eat you up inside.
How about you, Kade?
Yeah, I'm probably going to go with a quote as well. I love the quote from Steve Jobs where he says, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward." And it's just about taking that leap, whether it's, joining Maker School like it was for us, or sending an Upwork application. Like, eventually it probably will pan out. And like Jake said, if it doesn't, like, you haven't really lost anything. Like, you're not, putting your house on the line to join Maker School, or to send an Upwork application, or to, sign up to Google Workspace to create a cold email account. It's very minimal risk, but like the upside potential is, yeah, as you can see, pretty good.
Well, I certainly hope you're not putting your house up in order to pay for Upwork Connects and or Maker School. If you are, please don't join. I don't want that responsibility. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the call. Congrats again on the success. Really stoked at seeing you guys quadruple that in a few months and come back to do another one.
Definitely, that's the goal.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having us.